Live wisely, love well, and serve greatly. These words are the personal vision statement of today's guest, and their sentiment has guided the direction of her life, career, and dreams. Hi, I'm Dr. Matthew Norton of People Plus Purpose, and this is the Truth Behind Dentistry podcast. And today I am excited to be joined by Dr. Yolanda Mangrum. Guided by her vision, she knew she wanted to create an all-specialty dental collaboration to include medical aesthetics in a whole-body wellness center. She is the owner of Petaluma Dental Group and the creator of Allume Medspa and Luminary Education Center. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Mangrum.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we are coming to our audience today from my office and from your mobile unit. I love that. We can see the flowers out the window there, so I like that. So I just decided I would start with those words that are meaningful to you. And I thought maybe you could talk to us a little bit to get us started on this focus that you have on that vision statement. And we'll go from there.
So I have found that when you have clarity around vision, you have clarity around like what you want, and the more you work on knowing yourself, knowing what is important to you, and continue to respond with the question is what's most important now? What's most important to me? If I looked back on my life and said, yes, that was the way I would want it. That would be so that would be how I'd want to be remembered. I often do exercises with people when I'm coaching to say, name 3 words that you would want people to describe you by. And, like say in your passing. So, but also live wise, love well, and serve greatly. It becomes this like constant support for me to say, am I on track? Am I off track? And so taking that a little bit further, because as I said, words are really, really valuable to me. They really help me to get centered. The power statement of this leads me into lots of other words. And one of the words I know we're going to talk a bit about is Ikigai, and how that shapes my my team and my myself as well, looking into that. And so that really marries with live wise, love well, and serve greatly, in that Ikigai, it's a Japanese term that means your reason for being. And if we go back to my statement, I feel that that's my reason for being. If I'm walking through life and finding that kind of success, I would like to see that be kind of like my stake in the ground, my sign of like why I exist. So that's where that's came from, and that's how that's been serving for me. I would say probably for the last 20 plus years at least.
That's great. I love that. I love that. And I was thinking as you were saying that, how interdependent those phrase elements are, that because I think a lot about serving, about service, that certainly our audience is in a service business. But everybody really is in a service business, because if you have a business or involved in a business, then it doesn't exist if you're not serving somebody. Although I'm not sure everybody is bringing that conscious mentality to what they're doing all day long, every day. But I find in terms of working with leaders and teams where there are communication breakdowns, where there are frustrations, conflict that's coming up, not just in business, but also I've had the privilege of being a part of a lot of marriage coaching or premarital. And the same principles apply, that I believe that to love really does mean to serve. And I'm not sure how you love well and serve greatly if there's not some piece of living wisely. So I
Mhm.
love the juxtaposition of all of that. So I just think it's
Mhm.
great. It's inspiring to me.
Yeah, so Robin Sharma wrote that quote, and I latched onto it as soon as I was like, yes, that is my statement. And so as I was hearing you speak as well, I think it's really important for teams to understand and people. I've always, whether I owned a business or not, looking back on my life, I've always seen myself as working for me, not the business. And that's what I tell all of my team members. You are in the business, you're in your own business, and you're working within a business. So for instance, we have to look at what's most important to you in moving you through that part of your life. So I coach for fortune management, and our tagline is extraordinary practice, extraordinary life. I actually reverse that always. I've always put it in it's always about extraordinary life. And then the practice comes into play. So working with teams, I think, is often, it's often one of those things that we have to talk about, is finding out, like, you're going to be serving and supporting us in this role. It's going to be a significant part of your life and ours. And so we do need to make sure that we're both feeling that service is what's making you happy. And happy and joy, I know people kind of like to play along with that. What is happy? It's happy is very fleeting and such, but in sense of what is going to bring you that essence of life that makes you feel very satisfied and purposeful. So that's where I take it from, the idea of what you were talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very good. Very good. Does that relate? I know you've referenced your team's purple culture.
Oh yeah.
Is there how does that connect in with what you were just saying, or does that?
Yeah, so talking about culture, I mean, culture is what's going to drive everything. And you have culture whether you actively cultivate it or not. The culture is there. So I actually actively cultivate that. And a long time ago, I said, if I need to narrow this down to a color, and the color, because then we could put a splash of that color like in different places that
Mm.
stands out to someone to kind of give them a subliminal reminder. And so then we went into defining what is the essence of what we want people to be, in their actions and in their behaviors when they're at the practice. And so we've very much gotten into defining what it means. In fact, we have shirts, purple shirts when it's a team event. We
Mm.
have our purple culture shirts, and there's a word cloud that goes through the very distinct core values that we embody, the leadership importance that, qualities that we want to put out there. And we spend time talking about what is purple, because it's an infinite discussion about all the different qualities that come into creating that. But ultimately, we have it very well defined. I actually am happy to share with anybody our culture handbook.
Mm.
I can give you a PDF of that to reference in your podcast, because I do think that if you've got that clarity with team members where they know what and how to behave,
Hmm.
I think that they're very comfortable in the environment. It can be a much more relaxing experience. Oftentimes people really do want to do a good job, and they want to feel like they've gotten it right.
Yeah.
And but when it's loosely defined, or they don't know what is what, or how they're going to please their superiors or their team, then it's left for to be maybe not met.
Right.
So we really spend a lot of time defining purple, rewinding that conversation over and over again. Onboarding is a very big part of that too. making sure that the team members that come in understand how we be in our surroundings, because that's an important thing, because then there becomes less miscommunications. So yeah.
Well, the level of intentionality and all of that, I think, is very meaningful, right? Because so much of the time when I will meet a practice owner who is frustrated, and probably people say, well, when do people normally, what are the circumstances by which you typically meet them? And I'll say, well, I'm often introduced to somebody when there's a conflict that they need to get solved. That's the pain point, right? No different than coming in for healthcare a lot of times. If there's not a pain point, then I assume I'm probably fine, whether I'm fine or not, right? But it'll often be like, if you could just fix my office manager, if you could just get this other person to be a certain different way. And then we, in conversations like, well, there were 3 or 4 other office managers who apparently also did not get it together from your perspective. So then that will come out. And one of the next statements is, or questions is often, well, do you think, I mean, are you saying that I could be part of the problem? And I always find that's where we've made a lot of progress, because the leader is now seeing that maybe I'm not leading as well. So as I hear you talk, there's a level of leadership development and intentionality clearly that sets the tone for the team, which is wonderful. And that's not intrinsic to healthcare professionals to be by nature good at that. And I don't think that there's been the training to accomplish it either. So I love what you're doing in that regard.
Yeah, I think I echo what you're saying for sure. And almost always we have to look within ourselves. I actually have, for those that are listening, if we point a finger out at someone, how many fingers are pointing back at yourself? There's at least 3 times more fingers coming back at you than the one that you're pointing out at the other person. So when anything goes on in the practice, I definitely see it first as to how could I have better communicated? How could I have gotten better results by giving better training, or making the resources more available? Or and so there's a checkoff list that I go through. So that's why there's so much intentionality put into not only our culture handbook, but we actually have an operating principles manual, and we sit down and close the whole practice for one day, and we go through our operations, and have each person. Actually, this last year we did a great thing. We actually had section by section, one person responsible for each section, and they presented it to the team as though it was even a new concept. Because what we found was when another person, not just myself, but another person in the office actually put it in their words, they described it in their way, it gave a highlight to someone else to hear it differently and then get it that much more clearly. So we have a concept that's through and through with Fortune, which is leaders leading leaders. And that's our point, is we want to build leadership within each one. And each time I onboard someone, I tell them that we're starting, your leadership training, and whatever you're responsible for here, we're going to continue to work and hone on your leadership skills. The thing is that people sometimes feel like, oh, I'm not a born leader. Well, actually, everybody's born to step into leadership and be a leader. And I think that what I have discovered over now my 3 decades of being a practice owner is that some of the most powerful leaders are the opposite of me in our practice. They're the ones who are going to be able to get things through even better, which is, when I say the opposite of me, I'm more direct. I'm a more direct leader, which I think some people expect that is what leadership is.
Right.
But it's oftentimes a leader is anyone that's going to step up and then other people are going to follow.
Right, right.
And if you follow things like Simon Sinek, it's those people that are going to build trust and safety. They're going to build a safety circle, and people are going to feel like they can rely on them. And then now they're a leader. But when you don't walk your talk, which is another phrase we have in Fortune, which is, which means that walking your talk means like you're saying things,
Mhm.
but your behaviors don't show that.
Right, right.
So those are the main things that I work within team, or my own team, or even coaching other dental practices, that it's leadership, and it's looking back on yourself. And it's more so, the more you work on you, the more that other people around you will step up and look at themselves as well.
Very good. Very good. That's a good challenge to leave people with. So,
Mhm.
to slight segue, although clearly related. So you have this multi-specialty medical and dental practice, and you're incorporating proactive wellness in that. Maybe you can tell us just a little bit about what that's like, why you feel like that's a powerful approach.
Yeah, definitely. I think with the changing insurance environment, and even the changing, environment as to who are running healthcare right now, I think it's really, really important that we are educating our patients to advocate for themselves, and to be in a more advocating role with their care, which in my opinion means that you're being more proactive versus reactive. And the preventative concept is that it's not just a mouth that we're working with. Everything is interconnected. And although insurances have been separated, where, you've got an eye doctor, you've got, the medical and dental is totally not part of a medical plan.
Right.
We clearly are very much affected in all of those ways. And I think that all physicians may not be as intimately aware of how things get, as like an open window of the mouth shows all kinds of things that we see health changes and challenges. So we do dig in deeper than just being a mechanic in the mouth. And we are looking at bringing that opportunity to patients. I mean, and I do see it as an opportunity where they can be in the driver's seat on their health,
Mhm.
and they can then be in choice, because otherwise they're living in the effect of, and they're just waiting for disease to happen. I know that personally. I recently just fired one of my physician, because I stated that you're really not driving health, you're just waiting for disease to come about.
Mhm.
And I just don't feel that we're in alignment.
Mhm.
So with the dental practice, I really do, in fact, work towards getting everyone in that mindset, because it also has to do with a mental capacity to be in that mindset. So the very first thing you see when you walk through Petaluma Dental Group, which we are happy to have anyone come and share, if you're in the Bay Area and you'd like to see and get a tour, it's not uncommon for people to come and just get a tour of the practice, and or come to our Luminary Education Center and spend some class time with us, where we're doing some continuing education courses in both medical and dental, as well. We have an offerings that we put out there, but you come into Petaluma Dental Group and there is a community garden, and it's with organic vegetables, and patients are encouraged to take from the garden, to clip some herbs, to put some freshness into their diet. And it's just it's hopefully getting them into an initially understanding that they're walking into something different. And so there's a lot of intentionality there with the community garden. And then throughout the practice, they then come on in, and there's massage chairs sitting as soon as they come in. And so we work also with essential oils in the office to like say, let's just take some deep breaths, basically. But we say, do you like the smell of lavender or orange? And then they tell us, and then we put it on a 2x2, we wave it in the air, and we say, oh, doesn't that smell great? What we're doing is getting them to take a couple deep breaths, just get present with where they're at, started getting them to relax. So there's these tiny things that don't take much to do, that you can set the tone of putting them in a place where they feel cared for, and it's not just about being a mechanic in the mouth. And so beyond that, we go into the med spa arena. We've been doing a lot of facial aesthetics, which is super cool on the aging side, to feel younger, and as far as having the looks of feeling younger, and the excitement of also being in regenerative medicine, using lasers and different modalities of wound healing that can support things like even joints and different pains and aches, and putting light energy into those things. So we're continuing to learn and explore and be in the world of regenerative medicine, and just basically put people back in the driver's seat of their health and their well-being, and their wellness. So we really use the word a lot of wellness. This is going to be a wellness focused. There's going to be a wellness focused approach, and so it's not about selling you something. It's just about putting you in a place where you're going to be in the driver's seat for your health and wellness.
I love all of that, Yolanda. I think that's awesome. Did you see another practice somewhere that inspired the breadth of these unique offerings, or were pieces gathered in different things that were being done, and this has come together uniquely for you?
So I think a blend of what you're saying. I mean, there's no one practice that is I found similar, but I find like-minded people all over. I stay connected. We have Fotona lasers, so there's a symposium that I go to with Fotona that has medical and dental blended, which I look forward to every year. I've attended a lot of conferences and such, but ultimately also really blending with my Fortune family, where dentists across the country, especially with the multidisciplinary approach, that came about through a group, our division of Fortune called Platinum Circle, and where I'm a very collaborative kind of person, and anybody that comes around me, I'm an open book. I'm like, share it, take pictures, because the reality is that it does come down to what you said. It's inspiration. Mm-hmm. People don't make these things up on their own. They found something at a spa that they went to. They walked across a retail place and then said, how can I turn that into something that twists into a special thing for what I'm trying to create? We get inspired by books, right? So ultimate on podcasts like yourself. So nothing happens in a vacuum. And I have definitely a unique take on being really part of the Petaluma community, in the service part of what Live Wise, Love Well, and Serve Greatly. Service is really part of our community, and so I really involve ourselves in many different events, many different things that we call Petaluma. And it's our unique approaches to connecting with the community and seeing how that branding of sorts comes into play with how we're being. And that was a conscious effort too, because when I moved in and bought the practice, there was already so many different Petaluma Dental this, Petaluma Dental, in our case, Petaluma Dental Group, but there's Petaluma Valley something, or I mean, all these different changes on our name. And I had a moment where I just really sat in my space and I'm like, am I gonna go all in on this, or am I gonna pull back? And in this case, we're at our 50th year of existence, and we're about to have our celebration just next week. And I just had a just conscious decision to say, no, we're everything Petaluma. And so that's kind of a stand. So you kind of, I think when you decide what your vision's going to be, you kind of go all in, or at least I do. And so this is a through and through concept for me as to how do we sit in the local space, but then how do we become part of this bigger community unit? And in my case, I really want to share with individuals everything that we're doing, with the intention that you can actually apply it yourself. I'm not saying this is a, I have the take on this area. In fact, I want everybody to kind of move, especially in the sense of being proactive and living in a career that they're going to feel more satisfied in. Because more than anything, our dentistry is it's a very hard and challenging on our bodies, on our mind. It's even getting more challenging with the insurance environment. So I'm just here to be abundantly sharing what we are doing, and then and hopefully inspiring some people to take it and apply it in their own way.
Well, thank you for doing all of that. And I'm absolutely certain that there's people that are with us today who are inspired by what you're doing. And I think there were two pieces there. One was getting clear on what that vision actually is, which could be a stumbling block for many people. And then the other part is going all in, right? I mean, you had to know what you were going all in on. So I think there's a lot of people who are with us who may be going, yeah, I'm not 100% certain that I've actually clarified what that biggest vision and mission are. And then, yeah, am I really willing to do whatever it takes? But I love the abundant mentality, and I love the fact that you're building this into the community. So I'm certain there's going to be a lot of people who are with us today who are inspired by what you're doing. And I feel like we could talk probably for hours, but for those people who would like to connect with you, who would like to see about, well, what would that be like to come up and take a look at your place? So they would like to connect with you to see what else you have to be able to be of support to them. What's the best way to reach you?
Shoot me a text. My cell number is 707-478-6394. Just let me know that you're interested. Sometimes, people just show up to the office and ask to be toured around. And that's totally acceptable as well. Petaluma Dental Group. And you can find us at petalumadental.com. So, I'm happy to take also any emails, which is just can be something in the show notes, rather than spelling everything out loud. But yeah, you can reach out to me, and I'm here to serve and support. I think that this is a great profession, that we have the opportunity to be in a profession that can give purpose. I mean, it seems like such a life well served to be in dentistry and in healthcare, to be constantly of service, and having the opportunity to step up into being in those heroic moments is definitely been a very big joy of my life.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you. Thank you for your time that you gave us today to be a part of to having a conversation with me, and look forward to speaking with you again.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So for everybody who is still with us to the end, which I'm thinking should be all of you, this is Matthew Norton, and I'm with Dr. Yolanda Mangrum. This is the Truth Behind Dentistry podcast, and appreciate you and look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.